And so that's how the Wallabot system came around. And I added a few tweaks because some of the things that you'd written when I tried to test them, I thought, so a great example being the stochastic high. You talk about a stochastic high being sort of over 80, and when I tested it, that worked. It worked really well, but it also worked with those highs being at a lower value than 80. So I think I finished with about 55. So there are a few places where I sort of I came up with my own rules based
Well,
on
this
back
brings up a
testing.
good point. And this brings up a really good point, Chris, that I'm so glad that you mentioned that in the process of building a system, for those of you that are considering automated trading or are engaging in the practice of it now and dedicated to it, or at least willing to give it a try with the Wallabot and so forth, one major advantage, I think, of many to this enterprise that you're agreeing to consider is that in order for me to find out that a multitude of stochastic highs might work as opposed to just one would require an extraordinary amount of human hour testing time, right, Chris? I mean, I don't know, to go through the many different iterations of variables and come out with all of the different ones that might work is so difficult for an individual to do. Now it's possible, right, Chris? But you were able to, within a period of time that measured in days or weeks, do something that might have taken me 12 months to do.
Yeah, so I've actually calculated in this sort of sad, geeky state of mind that I'm sometimes in, roughly how many candles of back testing I went through to
I love this.
start to finish with Wallabot, and this is very much an underestimate. And there's actually we ought to get that PDF sent round to people; they can have a look at it. But roughly speaking, the number of candles tested is 100 million. Now, if you'd sat down in front of Forex Tester, good though Forex Tester is, your spacebar would have melted way before you got anywhere near 100 million candles.
It's just too much to consider. Now, it's not to say that everyone needs to test 100 million candles, but it is saying, and I am making the claim as we begin this webinar today, that having access to do that testing adds a level of comprehensiveness to a trader and the system that they use that most people don't ever consider as available to them or possible. And to start things off today, one of the major advantages that I want to talk about today, and it's not to sell something or to prove that what we have is the best, I'm just saying that one of the major advantages of using an automated system that can be tested historically in a reasonable amount of time is you get access to testing over a longer period of time, a much bigger section of the market, and you can't really replicate that manually very easily, and it's one reason that I've really liked it. Now, you also mentioned at the beginning, and the recording didn't catch this because I didn't start it soon enough, but you also mentioned at the beginning, Chris, that one of the advantages that you saw in doing this was when automating something, that some logic out of a webinar that I produced or a system that you read about in a book, it does sort of allow you to take advantage of the benefits of the system without sitting in front of the computer or deciding that you're going to be smarter than the system and not take the trade or something like that.
Yes, absolutely.
And one thing that I'm going through right now is I'm running a methodology that you and I have worked on together. I'm running a bunch of them, actually, and one of them is running right now. And yesterday I checked on this short euro trade that it had, and I was tempted to shut that trade down and close it out because I just thought, wow, there's no way in the world. This is already up like hundreds of points. And it's just a great trade, and it's up hundreds of points, and it sold it right up here in this area, and it was up like, I don't know, something like 120, and I was like, oh, I gotta take it. But the system wasn't going to close it out until it reached 225, and
Correct.
and so my average loss right now on this methodology running is $8, and the gain that it took yesterday is 84, 10 times bigger than the average loss. And the human side of me would have said, I've got to close that trade because there's no way. I mean, you got to take what's there. You got to grab the profit that the market gave you. You got to seize the day or not let it get away from you or protect your profit or trail your stop or all. But the methodology says, no, as programmed, the profit target is 225 pips. And it's like a gentle robotic voice that tells you, please don't touch this
And,
while I'm doing something for you, because this is my brain logic and your brain logic expressed in the form of an automated system. I mean, it's just doing what we would have said that we were going to do if we had just been trading it manually. It just did a better job of staying with it and didn't get nervous when it was up 224 pips. You know, it didn't close it early.
and the great thing about this, Rob, the system we've got there, the reason I know that the stop loss should be, I think it's 21 pips, and the take profit should be 225, is because I've tried, let's have a wider stop loss. I've tried, let's have a shorter take profit. I've tried, let's put a trading stop in. I've tried all those things based on 10 years of historical data, and I know that a 21 pip stop and a 225 take profit is the optimum. Now, the other thing is, I also know that whatever happens in the future won't be the same as the past. So those values are not necessarily the values which happen to be the exact pinnacle of performance, but they were right in the middle of a sweet spot that said your stop loss needs to be about between 18 and 22, 23, because if it's any bigger, you lose too much on the losing trades. And if it's any smaller, you're always being stopped out. And the take profit is somewhere in between 200 and 250. So let's go for 225. And when you see a trade like that, it just makes me so proud that my little bit of code and your system, which you developed years ago, and then sort of put away to one side because it was just too difficult to trade, is creating pips. It's going out there of its own volition. It's like when your child brings home a wonderful piece of work from school and you think, wow, where did they get that talent from?
Yeah, right. It's so true. And that's why I appreciate working with you, is that we share a perspective, that we have a healthy dose and amount of skepticism for the Holy Grail. And at the same time, we have a reasonable skepticism in the ability of a human to do exactly what they promised they were going to do with the trading system, that it goes both ways, that no mechanical system is ever the Holy Grail or the pathway to trillions of dollars. And at the same time, no one ever said that humans were going to follow their trading methodology exactly. And if you can combine the skepticism that you have with both, you can tread lightly and safely into the world of automated trading and maybe come out on the other side better off than where you started. And brings me to this point right now. So today we're joined by a bunch of people thinking about automated trading or engaging in the practice of automated trading. And I want to describe in about 5 minutes, I want to describe the process by which we went through the process that we engaged in to create something that ran in an automated fashion and why it made sense to do it and so forth. This is a MetaTrader chart. It's got candles, obviously, an 800 period simple moving average, which is not important for the discussion that we have today, but it's always on my charts. We have a regular stochastic oscillator set to 30, 10, 10. That's at the lowest panel on my screen. We have a stochastic wallaby, or the wallaby, which is described in my book, The Wallaby Trade, which you can get for free on piptoring.com or buy on amazon.com for about $10. Or you can just listen to what I'm about to say and get the majority of the information that you'll need. The wallaby is a combination of stochastic oscillators thrown on top of each other from 3 different time frames simultaneously, then averaged out to create one line. What it does is it shows you 3 different stochastic oscillators all at the same time by using one line, and simplifies the process. You could read more about it, like I said, in a variety of locations, and we don't need to give you a lesson about it right now. These indicators that are on my chart right now can produce what is called divergence. For example, the euro dollar was falling on the 15-minute chart, and in this example, right in the left-hand side of my chart with a blue line drawn on it, we have the currency pair falling to new lows. So there's a trend line sloping lower right here on the chart. And at the same time, the wallaby was rising. So you have a situation where the candles were falling and the indicator was rising, and that's what we call divergence. It's an early warning sign that there is a possible move upward in store for the euro dollar. Almost seconds later, in the world of Forex, we have slightly higher highs on the price and lower lows on the Wallaby, leading us to believe that there could be a move downward. And over time, you can see that this combination of trend lines and the Wallaby indicator produce early warning signs that something is about to happen. If you see red on my chart here on the screen, it's an early warning sign that we might see a fall. And if you see blue on my charts, it's an early warning sign that we might see a slight incline or upward movement in this currency pair. I'm looking at the 15-minute chart because, in my opinion, the optimal time frame to operate this particular methodology is the 15-minute time frame. Now, I wrote a book about it, and the book sold about 3 copies, and nobody really paid attention to it. And I wasn't offended by it. I was amused by the fact that it was the best step-by-step instructions I've ever given within the pages of a book. Ever. I mean, it was the best step-by-step description of a trading system that has worked for me over the years that I'd ever given. And, whatever, I'm not offended by it. I just think it's amusing. And the problem with this trading methodology, and with so many other methodologies, Chris, is that in order to operate it successfully, you pretty much either have to snort enough cocaine to stay awake 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or, Chris, you have to do something to automate it. And I don't know how to automate anything. Like, I'm not going to do that. And Chris came along, and Chris, kind of said, hey, I'd like to automate that. And I was like, whatever, whatever, and he wrote a blog post about it, and I started reading it, and I was like, wait a minute here. This isn't the Holy Grail. This is my brain plus Chris's improvements programmed for the charts that could run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week without my screwing it up, right, Chris?
Absolutely. And the nice thing about those examples is it's very easy with divergence to squint at a chart and sort of wave your fingers up and down and look sideways and try and identify divergence, and it's not really there, or you're getting in too early, or you're not waiting for a new low to be formed, and all of a sudden you're placing trades which in 10 minutes time the chart would have changed, and whatever you saw there fleetingly has now disappeared. When you're automating it with a system like this, because you set specific rules in place, that chart does not draw divergence until it's met all the criteria, and it introduces so much discipline. And if, like me, as a manual trader, you are blown in the wind by there's definitely something going on there, or I reckon that's going to break out nicely. Having a system which you've defined the rules, and you just say, right, don't do anything until all the rules have been met, and I know those rules are correct because I've back tested it, or maybe not correct. I know that those rules have the highest probability of succeeding because I've back tested it. It doesn't take all the emotion out, but it just makes life so much more profitable because you're focusing specifically on a set of rules which you've back tested and you know to be of a high probability, as opposed to being subjective.
And that's the Holy Grail portion of automated trading. The Holy Grail portion isn't that it's magic, that it can never lose, that your account will increase over time dramatically because it's magic and black box and special logic. And Chris and I don't think we're smarter than anyone. We don't think that we're more talented than anyone. In fact, I would put myself at the middle of the pack for most things. But Chris and I realized during this process together that we were never going to be as disciplined as a computer in the implementation of a set of rules that have proven over time to be profitable. And if I can prove that a set of rules over time implemented on the market have a certain historical likelihood of producing gains, that's not a guarantee. It doesn't mean that I found the greatest system ever, but it presents the opportunity to let a computer implement that logic under my direction and managed by me and supervised by me, so that I am employing full-time someone that is far more disciplined at entering these trades at the place that I said that I was going to do it anyway. And that's the introduction to the process. That's the introduction to why I think this makes sense. Now, for a pure discretionary trader, Chris, who says, I've calculated the risk of default on the European bonds, measured against the sentiment index and the Michigan bicycle index that came out today, and I have decided that this set of conditions that are different every day has led me to believe that the euro must go down by this amount, and I'm going to take that trade. A pure discretionary trader that cannot reduce their trading system to rules, we don't think that person is a fool, but that's not what we're talking about here. That's perfectly acceptable for anybody for whom that works. But you and I are talking about trading systems that came with objective rules that could be followed by a computer. This is a perfect solution to implement that automatically on a regular basis without any intervention, as long as you're running it in a reliable environment.
That's right, and I think, you know, if you're the sort of person that is a very good discretionary trader, then fantastic. Trade in a discretionary manner. But there's nothing wrong with having a second or a third system, which maybe, you know, doesn't require your
Yes,
unique skills, and have it running in
right.
the background. And if you want to just put a small amount of your account to one side to trade automatically, then great. Why not expose yourself to the risk of some of these trades that can be automated, you know, making money for you while your brain's doing something else?
Exactly. And or losing money for you while your brain is doing something else, because there are going to be trades that are produced that are not profitable, but that's going to be the case whether you're automating it or not. I mean, that's just if you said you were going to follow that system. And I see people all the time say, oh, I took this trade, but I shouldn't have, looking back in hindsight, or looking back here, or looking back there. And they have a rule-based system, but they tweak it a little bit, or they change it a little bit, or they say that, oh, not with the Wisconsin cheese index coming out today, I'm not going to take that trade. And we talk ourselves out of the good ones, we talk ourselves into the bad ones, we talk ourselves into early entries that turn out to be losses that then make it more difficult to make up for them later with the profitable trades. And if you get off of that circus wheel and you say, gosh, I do have a set of objective rules for this particular trading system and I want to implement them. So here's what we did to take a next step further for those of you that are Wallabot subscribers. And for those of you that are not, who are still thinking about it, we made available at what I think is a ridiculously affordable price the opportunity to implement a trading methodology that has been profitable historically over time, that we run automatically. And this is not a sales pitch. I'm just telling you that we're going to specifically talk about the Wallabot today because, Chris, it's the one we've worked on the longest, and there's a bunch of people who are trading it together and who are automating it and so forth. Here's what you do if you go down this road. And a lot of people, Chris, I don't think understand some of these elements of what they do next. And I want to introduce some of those elements and maybe ask for some of your commentary or advice or thoughts, because on a lot of these topics, you're much more of an expert than I am. So let's say you get access to the Wallabot. And once again, it could be access to any other expert advisor that you think about. There are a lot of things that you should keep in mind before you just run out there and put one on your screen. It's not the topic of today's webinar. We've already done a recording about that you can listen to later. But let's say you find one. You've done your homework. You've done your due diligence. You've discovered that it's going to work for you, that you want to take it for a ride and all that kind of stuff. You download that expert advisor, and that expert advisor ends up, when you download it and put it inside of your expert folder on MetaTrader, it ends up on the left-hand side of your navigation panel on MetaTrader. And when you want to implement that expert advisor, you drag it over to the chart that you're looking at. And Chris, do you have an instance of MetaTrader running right now that has the Wallabot on the left-hand side that we could look at?
It's on my VPS, which is on a different computer. If you want me to, no, it's a simple answer. Not on this computer, because all of my live systems run on my VPS server, which is...
Well, it's no problem at all, because that gives us an opportunity to just look at it from start to finish here. So what I'll do is I'll click on download the Wallabot here, and it will give me an error message that will say, hey, wait a minute, you got to get it. You got to get it, so you got to log in, Rob. So I'm going to log in here. And go back to the website after it took me to the dashboard here. I don't want to go to the dashboard. I want to go to download the Wallabot here. So I'll click here to download the Wallabot. It will download a file to my computer, and I will open up that folder and extract all the files, and then I'll copy those two files. Then I'll click on my computer, Windows, Program Files, FXCM MetaTrader 4, Experts, and I'll drop those right in there. Now we have instructions on how to do this inside of our website, but this is good for anybody that's thinking about playing around with an Expert Advisor, which is a trading robot for MetaTrader. Then I'll close MetaTrader. And Chris, I have to close it and reopen it before it will recognize that I've just loaded that.
Yes, you do.
Next time I open up my MetaTrader installation, over here on the left-hand side of the screen, I have my indicators. Boom, there they are. I have my indicators right there. If I grab Wallabot Live v1.5 and drag it over to my chart, I can set it up and play around with some of the settings, and you can get more information about that inside the Wallabot page, and then click OK. And assuming that I own a licensed copy of this Expert Advisor, it will begin to run on my computer automatically. And you'll see a little happy face up here in the right-hand section of your screen. I've got a sad face because it's not a licensed copy right now, and it's not running. And then it will begin to take the trades that the Wallaby divergence methodology created by you and I says that it should take. Now, that's step one. I got it running on a chart here. It's a great way to experiment with or test it out or look at it and see what kind of trades that it takes and whatever else. There are some drawbacks here, Chris, to running it on your local computer, and it's something we've been promising all the Wallabot family members that we were going to talk about for a while. There's a drawback here to just running it on your local computer. Just pulling up your own installation of MetaTrader, throwing this on your chart, and then letting it rip. And what are some of those drawbacks to having it just run on your local computer?
Well, the main problem is for an EA to work, an EA that you want to trade 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, you need a computer that's up and running 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. And exactly. And when you have children or pets or an unstable electricity supply or Windows, or basically anything which could disrupt that that process happening, what you will discover is the very time that the mother of all trades opened, or should have opened, your laptop was being used by your children to watch Lost in 3D, or Adobe had decided that you needed yet another update of whatever it was. And so whilst it's absolutely right that when you start off playing with and evaluating automated trading, that you do it on your local PC or laptop, because you don't know yet whether this is the trading style for you. As soon as you get more focused on thinking that this is something that I am going to invest in, then the idea of getting a VPS service, which is a virtual private server, or it's basically your own personal slice of a much bigger computer that's always up and running and always connected to the internet and sitting somewhere else. And it means you can just you can log on through your existing PC, you can set everything up very much as you've done there, and then you can just switch off your local PC and you can go on holiday, or you can do whatever you want, and you know that somewhere else there is a PC that's running in some green field somewhere with your trading systems trading for you. And as you've got a chart there, these things are not excessively expensive.
Exactly. It's so true. And what we've done here is we don't partner with the company, and there's no company giving us a kickback or anything like that. Although I've reached out to a couple different companies and asked them if they could provide a discount to people that we know and some of those things. But a virtual private server, as Chris has discussed, is a black box or a gray box or a white box sitting inside of a computer farm in the middle of Pennsylvania or Texas or the backcountry of England, with lots of air conditioning and electricity and internet. And what a company will do, and this is a very big business these days, is they will operate a business where they have a farm or a collection of computers which can be rented out remotely to run trading strategies. So they have a computer, a gray box or a black box somewhere, and they allocate to me a little section of this box that is allocated to me. And they give me access to that box. And their only job is to keep this box turned on, connected to the internet, and available to its user 24 hours a day. They have uptime guarantees of about 99% or 99.6%, and they promise that for $18 a month, I can get here, log in, check it out, and manipulate it. Now, a lot of people ask me often, well, what in the world does that mean? What does it mean when you say you're getting access to this box? And this is the magic, Chris. This is where I think that it's difficult at first, and it seems complex, and it even seems overwhelming to some people. But what they do is they send you an email, and in that email they give you a set of instructions, and they say, go on your computer to the start menu on Windows and type in remote. And all of a sudden, Windows is going to pop up a box that says Remote Desktop Connection. If you click on that, which I've already done, you'll click on Connect. It will ask you to plug in your password after the Connect button. And once you do that, and here I am at the password field, it pops up a screen. And in this screen right here on my computer, I have a window into another Windows computer that is operating 24/7 in Pennsylvania, and I'm looking at it in a window on my screen as if I were operating that computer right here. So it presents to me the desktop and browser and programs and everything that I could possibly ever want on a computer right here. So there's not some weird interface or weird ESP algorithmic, tin can connected by strings or something crazy that you have to use to operate this. It gives you a window that you look through, and you can operate this as if it were your home computer. You can click on the start menu and go to a program. You can go to the internet through the browser and download some software. And Chris, what a person does is they sign up for a virtual private server at a company like that. They sign up for the basic Windows package, for example. They get an email back to them after they sign up a few days later, and it says your server is ready. They go to this remote desktop connection. They enter their password, and they bring up this desktop that looks just like their desktop. And if I click on Control Escape, my start menu on my home computer will pop up. But if I'm inside this window here and I click that, my start menu pops up. And if I start typing on the, while my cursor is in here, the typing is reflected inside the computer remotely. And I'm manipulating and using this computer as if it were right here in front of me with a very slight delay. Some companies also provide you tools so that you can access this computer remotely through an iPad or Android mobile or an iPhone. I've loaded software onto my server here that allows me to access that through a different piece of software. But I generally just operate it from my computer. And so, Chris, they can download MetaTrader. They can download the Expert Advisor or Robot straight in the same way they would have. They can go to the Wallabot homepage right here, and they can download all of this stuff on this computer and set it up as if it were their home computer.
Absolutely. And the other thing you can do, if you click on the start menu in your remote desktop connection setting, depending on how you've got it set up, you can then also access the hard drive and everything else on your home computer, which means transferring files across is just dragging and dropping it from one to another. I'm not sure how it does that. It's the sort of magic definition of technology, which makes me go all goosebumpy. But it really is so easy to use. In fact, the only downside is that sometimes you forget whether you're operating inside your VPS system or your main system, which is why I've got my running on a completely separate computer.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I will actually think I'm typing on one and I'm typing on the other. One time I was like checking my email, and I was doing all kinds of stuff on this computer. I'm like, where are my bookmarks? This is weird. All my bookmarks are gone. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm on a different computer. And I had to close that out and realize that I was in a different spot. What's beautiful
The other
about
thing,
this, yeah, go ahead.
go on, Rob, go on, carry on, Rob.
What's beautiful about this is that it's you're running another computer without having the box sitting in front of you. It's always on. It's somewhere else, and the box, you're not maintaining it. If it breaks down, there's somebody right there to fix it, and so forth. And are there any questions about that process so far? There's been a lot of people who recently have said they were interested in knowing more about how this works. And this webinar is sort of, I think, giving you a preview of how that works. Just click on, I mean, I'm at Southwest VPS, swvps.com, and it's one of the more affordable ones. I have 2 servers now set up with them. And Chris, they want to choose a Windows server when they make a choice. Is that correct?
Correct. And I would start off with the cheapest Windows server that they do, and you'll probably be able to run 1 or 2 copies of MetaTrader on that. What I've done is I started with the cheapest, and then about 6 months into my contract, I upgraded it with a bit more memory and a bit more processing power, because I'm running about 7 or 8 different versions of MetaTrader with my live accounts and some testing accounts and some some messing around accounts. But there's no need to do that to start with. Just the cheapest you can get. And despite all the marketing blurb, basically a VPS is a VPS is a VPS. So as long as you're going to someone that looks vaguely reputable, the cheap is good.
And some brokers, if you deposit more than $5,000 in your live account, will provide a VPS for you at no charge. And I've got a link coming from 2 different brokers that give more information about that. FXCM provides it for MetaTrader, and Interbank FX does as well. I think most brokers who run MetaTrader will provide that service if your account size is large enough. It doesn't matter to us. Chris and I don't care. We don't, like I said, we don't have some special arrangement, and we're not trying to skim $3 off the top of your $10 monthly VPS subscription or whatever. I just think it's a good idea, and it's a great way. You can check on it. You can operate MetaTrader. You can manipulate it just like you would operate your MetaTrader at home, but it's going to be on all the time, operating all the time. You can run. Chris, I run my back testing even through it. I mean, I process the back testing results, everything. I do that all the way through that virtual private server, and I don't even have a lot of stuff loaded on my local installation of MetaTrader any longer because I just run it remotely.
The other thing you can do, which is really cool if you're a geek like me, is you can use your VPS system via your iPad to watch Flash on the browser that's on it, because your VPS will support Flash, so you can impress your friends. I think impress may be the wrong word, but it's
That's really good. I didn't think about that. That's absolutely fantastic. So any questions are welcome, and look forward to hearing from you. I want to spend some time talking about, just briefly, what it is that we implement here and why it is that we implement. We have a few different methodologies that we implement. There's the Wallabot, and there's a few others in the pipeline on the way, and some things that we're excited about. But in particular, we're operating, I'm just going to click on, you have $1 million Wallabot and the regular one, doesn't really matter. We operate the Wallabot, which is the automated version of a divergence trading methodology that was started by me, and I would say improved upon, perfected, filtered, all that kind of stuff by Chris. And it's truly a partnership between the 2 of us. And I'd love to hear what you are doing here in this this account that's been running now since, I don't know, since May or March or April. What are you doing in this one particularly? You're trading which currency pairs, and what are you tracking here, and what's your goal with this account right here in particular?
Okay, so the chart you're looking at is and my screen's just gone blank. Just bear with me, caller. The chart you're looking at is Wallabot running a single currency pair, the Euro US dollar, and it's running at an unrealistically high risk scenario where it's risking 10% of a virtual account on every trade. And the reason I did this was when I was doing my back testing, one of the things you get suckered into is to say, right, let's assume that going forward everything's exactly the same as it was in the past. How much profit can I squeeze from this? And in the 2 years that we tested Wallabot over, 2009 and 2010, the on that currency pair, based on a 10% risk setting, which is too high. So please don't try this at home. It took a $5,000 account and turned it into $1 million account. So I thought, well, with my VPS slots, I'm going to dedicate one of those to seeing whether I can recreate that. Now I have a rough rule of thumb which says whenever you're doing back testing, the best you can possibly expect going forward is about half as good as it was, with historic data. And the reason for that is, when you're doing back testing, whether you realize what you're doing or not, you are to a certain extent fitting a previous view of the world. You're designing a system to entirely fit a previous view of the world. So whilst it's perfectly reasonable to think that the future is going to be somewhat similar to what's happened before, it's never going to be exactly the same. So if you use a rule of thumb that profits going forward are going to be half as good as they were in back testing, you won't be disappointed. And certainly looking at this, we started running this off in I think it says made at the bottom of the screen there, and although we had a couple of poor trades. They weren't poor trades. They were trades that were executed today, as the system said. They just happened to be taken out by the stop.
Right.
We're still what's the figure on there? 64% up. Now, whilst I wouldn't expect, in fact, if you go into somewhere down there, you can change that view into pips rather than right a bit. I think in fact, if you just go down, scroll down, there's a really crap television show in the 70s called which involved the guy with a crossbow bolt basically going right a bit, left a bit. Right. If you go into monthly analytics, in the top right hand corner it says more. So down a bit, right a bit. That's it. More. Change it to pips. So that will give you, on a monthly basis, irrespective of the 10% lot size now, because that's irrelevant. We're just talking about the pips. So there you can see how the system's performed in terms of pips. Now, whilst that may not look spectacularly brilliant, because clearly there have been times when it's it's gone down and gone up, what you can see is that across however many trades that have been taken, it's winning more pips than it's losing so far.
Yes.
And
yes.
if you look at the curve going forward, because it's building on the winners, your account size is going up. And if someone has got a system which only wins, or like the one I was reading a few days ago, where it wins 75% of the time, and the winners are always 3 times bigger than the losers. And I thought that's a system for me. But until I get one of those systems, doing something like this, and clearly not risking 10% of your account, but if you want to risk 1% of your account, whatever you're comfortable with, you expose yourself to the risk of over time growing and making some money. And you don't have to say, right, I'm going to be doing no discretionary trading here. I'm only going to be automated trading. You can say, I'm prepared to take half of my account, or the margin I've got in my account, whatever you want to do, and I'm going to trade that with some automated systems that I'm comfortable with, and then I'm going to spend half of my account or half of my time in my account doing some discretionary trading. You can mix and match. But why wouldn't you have a system if you could, if you believed that a system has more probability of succeeding than of failing? Why wouldn't you expose yourself to the risk of making some money and making some pips?
Well, it's absolutely fantastic. Now, the subject of optimum risk or optimum bet size and trade size management is the subject for our next webinar presentation. So we'll attack that subject, and we'll talk about what the gains and what the equity curve could look like if the trade size were different. We'll look at some back-tested history of this system in particular. And we'll look at a variety of different scenarios where it's not always the case that less risk equals more or less money, because it all depends on where you start and where you finish and some other settings that I want to share with everybody at a later date. But I want to focus on something different right now, and something equally important. When you look at trading in an automated fashion, the initial temptation is to strike it rich trading the most successful, the most incredible, the most profitable system ever created. And Chris and I have a long interview which is about to be published for everyone to see, where we talk about some of the drawbacks and pitfalls of looking to trade something that has just gigantic promises but can't deliver. The Wallabot is the type of trading methodology, as is, I think, most things that Chris and I think about trading, that works for its dinner. It absolutely works for its dinner. It's going to have some periods of time where it has a spectacular run-up and gains a lot. And Chris, it's going to have some times where it has periods of time where it's disappointing and it doesn't produce as much as we might have hoped that it would. And that's relevant. I mean, we care about those times, and they take us for emotional swings. But what you and I are interested in is consistency, which does not mean that we're interested in profitable consistency where it's profitable every day or profitable every week. What we're interested in is consistency with respect to that it's probably going to make money, and it's going to make probably more money than it loses, and we can accept the risk that it's going to take, and that it will operate consistently. And that means for us not that it's going to be profitable every day, just like you said, because you and I could create a trading system that has 99% winners and has a 12,000 pip stop loss. I mean, we could do a lot of things.
Exactly.
What we want is consistency. So every system that you ever see us talk about will sort of work for its dinner, and it will go through periods of time where over a 2 or even 3 month period of time it might have a percentage return that someone might look at and say, well, that's not spectacular. But it's in our minds, it's guaranteed to beat the average retail trader trading in a discretionary fashion who loses money, and it's guaranteed to take every trade that the system is supposed to produce, and it's going to take that in a consistent and a reliable way, and it's going to leave us to make improvements and adjustments. We have a forum inside of the Wallabot family where people tweak the settings on the Wallabot, and in some cases, Chris, produce returns by tweaking some of the settings that have a better historical and better current live performance than the settings that you and I even came up with. I mean, that's part of the whole process, right?
Let me be very clear. I wrote this and tested it on 5 currency pairs on the 15-minute chart, and outside that I've done nothing. And it is wonderful to see people using Wallabot Laboratory to trade. I think Vicky Meltham was trading oil, and I think Chris Hensel is doing some wonderful stuff where he basically has his installation tweeting when it's open to trade, and then he manages the trade to closure. And it's fantastic. You know, there is no absolute right or wrong way of trading this system. You find a way that works for you, and you know, it's just brilliant when people are taking this and it's growing and it's doing things that I never imagined it would be doing, and it appears to be doing them profitably, and that's fantastic.
And you and I started the process off. We kicked it off. We made something accessible that has worked for us, that we are implementing in a way that makes sense for us. And in some cases, in many cases, in fact, we expect that the hive and the family collectively are going to come up with ways to utilize it and they already are doing it, that are improvements upon what we had initially created. In the same way that I wrote a book, you improved upon it, Chris Hensel picked it up and improved upon it, Vicky picked it up and improved upon it, and we welcome those improvements. And the historical performance that you see us produce in a fairly transparent manner may be improved upon, may be adjusted. We intend for that to happen. I mean, if anything at all, we expect that smarter individuals than you and I are going to pick up with this, run with it, and do something great with it. Now, I got a question, Chris. You mentioned checking this on your iPad. Some VPS providers is it correct, will install or have the installation prepackaged with something that allows you to view it remotely through a mobile device. Is that correct?
That is correct, but it's even simpler than that. And I'm just looking at my iPad now while we speak, because if you go into the App Store, and this is true for Android as well, there is a free app called Pocket Cloud, and it would appear to have a picture of a hang glider on it. And there's a free version and a paid version, and what that is basically remote desktop connection for your iPad or your Android system. And by using that and the settings provided by your VPS provider, you can access your VPS on the tablet of choice for you.
And that's a piece of software that you simply
That's it.
download to your mobile device, and then you also install it on your remote device. Is that correct, or do you not even need to install something remotely?
No, you don't need to install anything remotely at all. It should just
Wow.
give you access, and the free version gives you access to one VPS system, which is what most people are going to need.
That's spectacular. So, for those of you wondering or who have asked the question, it's WYSE, Wise Pocket Cloud, and you do not need the $14.99 version, Pocket Cloud Pro. The free version, which is probably called Pocket Cloud Free, is perfectly acceptable. And the only drawback or the only reduction in capability from Pro to free is that you can only log into one, and I don't see anybody here that's going to be running 12 of these and needing additional Pocket Cloud Pro power. Chris, I enjoy every single conversation that I ever have with you, and I think what we've done today are a few things. We've introduced the concept that automated trading may, in some cases, be suitable for individuals that are not available 24 hours a day to watch the charts or find themselves taking trades they didn't plan or not taking trades they did plan and need some assistance in trading a rule-based methodology. Number two, we've talked about the Wallabot, which is a divergence trading mechanism that has traded profitably historical, and although past performance is not indicative of future results, there is a growing family of people on the Wallabot website trading together, checking out settings, trading different financial instruments, and creating settings that impress me every single day. And last of all, we've mentioned that using a virtual private server, or in other words, a VPS, can assist an automated trader in implementing a strategy or a robot in a more secure, robust, and reliable environment. And Chris, I always appreciate your comments. I always am grateful for everything that you've done and given back to everybody here. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today with all of the Wallabot traders. Thank you all for joining us. Chris, any last words of wisdom for those individuals out there that have joined us today?
Always carry a torch with you at nighttime.
I never get tired of talking to you. We need to host a radio show every day. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you being here, and we will see you next time in 2 weeks. You're welcome to come back. We'll send you an email, and we'll invite you to be there. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone, for being here. We'll upload this recording within about 24 hours. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
The organizer has ended the session, and this call